We are back on MorningLine. Thanks for joining us. Nick Beres along with, you know this guy, legal analyst Nick Leonardo. It's good. We just get back together and we do this. We just got
just like we never left.
Do we have any other gavel-to-gavel trials pending?
Well, I mean, I guess that's the question for you. I mean, the Delkey case, if that ends up going, that's a big one.
Yeah, the Officer Delkey case, if that goes, it's not for Joe Clyde Daniels until next spring, that one. Gabby Doolin up in Kentucky, the little girl that was killed.
Those are both. I think the Joe Clyde Daniels was a little more interesting than the Gabby Doolin.
Yeah, they're both horrible.
Both horrible cases.
Yeah. Well, we'll see. I just mentioned that because I know a lot of people recognize us up here together doing gavel to gavel, and there will be more to come. But this morning we're talking about juvenile crime and the transfer. We've got some more folks with thoughts on this, and let's go next to Ann. Ann, good morning. Hi, Ann.
Good morning. Several things with this case bother me. One, this young lady was driving with a suspended license. What does a 17-year-old have to do to get a suspended license? Whose car was she driving? We've not heard one word about whose vehicle it was and whose responsibility that was. She's almost 18. This young lady knew exactly what she was doing. She hit that car with such force that it spun it around, and we now know by autopsy it was not the fire, it was the impact.
Wow.
That took severe force to make that happen. Those are the things that concern me about this case. She knew when she drove that vehicle, someone besides her knew that she was out in that vehicle, and we are not taking the adults that should be accountable for these things. It transcends more than just the poor population. When I worked for schools, I saw the wealthy children stand by and say, yeah, I've got a trunk load of pot in my car, but my father's an attorney and I'll be back in school next week because you've never caught me, and because I can go to the first time offenders class on Saturday, I'll be back in school next week. And by golly, they were with a smile on their face. So our juvenile problems exceed more than just our poor population. It's going across our entire city, and it's happening every single day.
That's a great point. I'm glad she brought that up. It does exceed the poor.
It's across the board.
Across the board.
Beyond all socioeconomic borders there. And she's right, kids these days are more sophisticated than ever before. I do believe most of them, many of them, have an understanding of what's going down. Now, it's different in the fact that this Jayona Brown is 17. Okay, it might be a different conversation we'd be having if she was 15 or 14. But 17 and just a few months removed from possibly going to age 18. And she's right. She hit with force. That was something that came out yesterday, the autopsy report. Well, he died of blunt force trauma, which in a way, you think of dying's horrible, but he didn't burn to death. He was dead probably before that car caught fire because the impact was so dramatic. And so, I mean, there was doesn't appear foot on the gas, on the brake pedal, any of that. Does it change anything, the fact that the person she killed is a police officer?
I mean, the politics go through the roof. Okay. I mean, that's the other thing about it. I mean, I think everybody, there would be a general consensus, not that it matters, but that, this is a good human being out here just doing their job, right? I mean, I don't think we can underscore how dangerous it is to be a police officer. And I'm not even talking, this is a prime example, it's not even a traffic stop, right? You're just in the car, or you're driving, or you're shooting stationary.
He was responding to another call to go help another officer. So when you really think about it, it could have been anyone at that moment going through, happened to be him, but of course he was on duty going to assist an officer, but he was not really engaged in this. In this one, he just happened to be going through as she came, and it's just awful.
It's a horrible, tragic thing, but I mean, it's my heart goes out to his family, and again, it just underscores what a dangerous, how these officers put their life on the line every day. To try to keep us safe, because we always call them, we rely on them. If somebody came in here and started shooting up Channel 5 right now, we would just pray that the police officers could get here as quickly as possible and put themselves in harm's way, because that's what they do. You go back and you look at the Burnett Chapel shooting, where that sergeant responded and how bravely he walked in there, not knowing who the shooter was, and
when we heard him, the Emmanuel Sampson trial.
Yes. I mean, that's a prime example.
Of how they go into harm's way. Listen, maybe you can give a definition of this. A lot of people saying, and we're doing this streaming live on Facebook at newschannel5.com as well, saying you do an adult crime, you do adult time. What is an adult crime?
Well, I mean, it's a crime you commit when you're 18 years of age.
Okay, but I think what they're saying is if you're a juvenile and you're committing an adult crime. So I take it as when I hear, well, that 10-year-old or 15-year-old committed an adult crime, they committed something really serious, really serious. A juvenile crime, maybe in the minds of some, is stealing bubble gum from the corner market.
Curfew,
what is
marijuana.
Curfew. So an adult crime would be a gun crime, an ag assault. Is that an adult crime? And does adult mean more serious somehow?
Well, sure. I mean, the statute, the transfer statute provides that if you're less than 14, you can be transferred if it's first-degree murder, second-degree murder, or attempt to do either one of those. However, but 14 to 17, there's a list of crimes in there, and they're all essentially A level, which is the highest level felony crimes that we have. So, this is not something that we transfer them for stealing bubble gum or, having weed in school or something. I mean, these are serious crimes that we look to transfer.
Okay. Let's go next to Ross. Ross, good morning. Hi, Ross.
Hello. How are you, Nick?
Good, Ross.
Hey, good morning.
What's on your mind?
Hey, well, you guys were talking about consequences earlier, and a lot of that stems back to consequences even when you're children. They come up through the ranks and as juveniles, even in school and even on further, that consequences don't matter. The kids are in trouble at school. What happens to them? Nothing. They don't stand them in a corner and do anything. Oh, we're going to give them a timeout and set them over here. And then they do commit a crime, whether it's a so-called juvenile crime or an adult crime, it's still a crime. And what happens to them as a juvenile? Nothing. Just like these kids that were arrested under gun crimes, an adult crime, probably by anybody's definition, and are released, and now they steal a car. They could have just as easily run into an officer again, caused another crime, nevertheless released as a juvenile and put back in circulation to commit again. This happens over and over and over, and not with just juveniles. It also happens with adults that go to prison. They are released from prison, and what do? They come out of prison for a theft, and they wind up shooting somebody, including officers.
Well, yeah, what I hate is that we have situations maybe where you try to help them and reform them, and you notice the escalation in the seriousness of the crimes, and they're finally not feeling consequences until they kill someone.
I don't know about you, Nick. I had a kind of a tough time in school. I was maybe a class clown or cut up, and I never was arrested as a kid. My parents were called a couple of times and had to come get me. But the thing that kept me straight, quite frankly, was I was scared to death of my dad.
I'm glad you brought that up, because I was going to say he didn't mention it. Parents. Look, you have a beautiful young daughter, and I see you with her, and you're a terrific parent. And I wonder sometimes. No, well, maybe not, but she sure respects you, and that's what a lot of people on Facebook also are commenting on. Okay, how much responsibility do the parents? How much does Jayona Brown's mother bear responsibility for what she did, if any?
Well, and we don't know if any is exactly right, but going back to Ann's point, I mean, there could be a civil lawsuit here, and that is who did own the vehicle, and that was a great point. And if it was owned by her parents, then in part of the civil lawsuit, there's a couple of theories called the family purpose doctrine or negligent entrustment, and they would try to, civilly make her insurance pay if she had insurance on the vehicle, or make her stand, there for the judgment because the child doesn't have anything. And obviously the child didn't have insurance because she didn't have a driver's license. So I do think that, in the civil context, and there probably will be a civil suit without a doubt, a wrongful death civil suit, and I think then it does matter. But in this situation, there's no, as you know, you have a son in college, there's no right answers to parenting, and everyone does it a bit differently. And sometimes people have two kids, one of them's president and the other one's incarcerated, and they have the same parents, you raise them the same way, you have no idea how it happened.
Well, and that's the thing. Parents sometimes, and as I say, a lot of times parents can do everything right, but there's external factors like friends and who they run with. And so I don't know that's the formula to blame, but certainly in some of these cases, I think parents could be a little more involved.
Or just having parents. I think what we see with some of these children is, coming from single parent households, and, there's one parent and they have to work, and so a lot of times their siblings are raising them, or nobody's raising, they're home alone a lot of times, and, idle minds will find trouble. So I do think that, part of this is a degradation of the family unit, of having, parents involved in a two-parent household.
Let's go to Mac next. Mac, good morning. Hi, Mac. Are you there, Mac?
Good morning.
Good morning.
Yes, good morning. How you doing?
Good. Go ahead, sir.
You was talking about DUI and vehicle homicide. Just to give you a comparison, my niece's husband was on a senior trip in Panama City doing 30 miles an hour and hit a back of a car and a convertible. Girl falls out the back. She dies. He was 18. He got 8 years. And he come up with parole twice with good behavior and still couldn't get out. And that was full 8-year sentence. He served all of it. Came back to Tennessee and still couldn't get his license for another year. So his wife had to drive him around to work. Now he goes to schools on a regular basis and talks about DUI and drinking.
So he was under the influence when he collided with that vehicle?
Yeah, it was kind of a funny case. I'm not going to get into all the details.
Okay, I just want to be clear, though. He rear-ended, and she
30
fell.
miles an hour.
30 miles an hour. And listen, I wonder, and you made this point about revisiting the laws. I'm guessing, perhaps, and I thank you for calling. That's instructive that Florida has tougher penalties, perhaps. It sounds to me, if he did 8 years for vehicular homicide and 18 years old, 30 miles an hour, which is fast enough, but he was under the influence and rear-ended someone, and a poor girl died. 8 years.
Well, I think it does need to be broken down by the BAC. I mean, if you have two, in that instance, let's say he's 21, okay, and he has 2 beers, and it's less than 0.08, it's 0.06, for example, and with that very same set of facts, or let's say it is 0.0, right there on the verge. I mean, that's much different than the person who drinks that half bottle of Jack Daniels and is driving 90 miles an hour through a residential area and throwing caution to the wind. Okay, that's a much more dangerous person. So I do think that it does need to be revisited. It needs to be a bit harsher, without a doubt. And I think DUI in general needs to be revisited. I mean, you look at some of these other states, and Texas has gone off the deep end with, I think, a third DUI could be a life sentence, okay? But, is
that right?
Yeah, so here in Tennessee, I mean, it gets worse as, the subsequent DUIs come. The first one's 48 hours in jail, the second's 45, third is 120, the fourth is 150, and then the fifth is a felony. Why are we talking about a fifth? How do we even get to that point?
Right.
So I think that we need to kind of take a look at those multiple offense DUIs as well, and they have to some degree with treatment and other options out there. But it's a serious issue.
Take a break on that note. Come back with our final segment with the lawyer right after this. Stay with us.